All right, Tanya. Tanya, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am born and raised there, 1980s. My parents are hippies. My father was a Puerto Rican Jew. My mother was a Norwegian, and they were teen parents. And so they had my brother at age 15, me at 18, and my brother at 21. And we grew up with quite a different household. My parents were drug dealers, and so I had a lot of parties a lot of times. I watched my parents snort lines of cocaine off of photo frames of us as kids, and I've watched that with my own two eyes. I watched my I watched them have sex parties. I've watched. I've been through a lot of stuff with my parents. We got broken into, and because my parents were drug dealers, and so we had to move from Milwaukee to Whitewater. So I don't know, about an hour away in the country. And at this point, my mom was also addicted to crack at this time. And so my dad's thinking was to move her away from Milwaukee and go to a little better area. And so we went there, and it kind of helped for all of us. I think I was the only white girl growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I came from all black neighborhood, only white girl, only black friends, to an prominently all white, like upper class college town neighborhood. So it was quite the jump for me. But ironically, I started doing worse over there. That is where I lost my virginity at age 12. At age 13, my mom had an overdose, and I witnessed her have to get taken away. That was a big thing for my family. So she was gone for a few months. And during that time, my father was very, very abusive to all of us kids. And he was physically abusive. I had to call the police on him, and it just turned into a mess. And so it ended up being us just raising ourselves in the house, just alone. My dad would drop off groceries, at the end of the driveway, and we would have to pick it up because we had a restraining order against one another. But my mom, she kind of did good. She was sober. We kind of did okay for a few more years. And then we moved back to Milwaukee, where I became a teen mom at age 17. And it was a planned pregnancy because I thought I knew everything at that age. And I had my daughter at 17, another child at 20, and then my third son at 21. And with my third son, I met my ex, who I was with for 23 years. And so when I first met him, the first night we met, we had sex, and he got me pregnant 1 week later. And we moved in, and we stayed together the whole time for 23 years. And throughout the whole relationship, he had cheated on me. I mean, it was a horrible, it was an awful, very abusive relationship, and I regret staying as long as I did. So after my son, I would say after about, I think in 2000, I had him in 2001, so 2003, my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and that is where kind of my life took a downfall. She had skin cancer, and then it went to lung cancer, and finally brain cancer. And she passed in July of 2003. And while she was going through her, chemo and everything, she was giving me and my brothers the opiates. She was just giving us bags full of pills, and we were just taking it. Didn't even know at this time what it was going to do to us, And I don't think she intended for anything bad, but we had a very open family like that. We smoked weed together. They smoked cigarettes together. We talked about sex. It was very open like that, so it wasn't different for us. And after my mom passed is when I kind of lost it, obviously. I was 23. She was only 42. And she passed, and I got really addicted to pills. I had... So my ex had 2 children of his own, so we had 5 children that we were raising in total, and I was only 23 going through all this. And so I wanted, to do good for myself and whatnot. My ex-husband was a correctional officer at that time. I applied to work at the city hall as a teller. And so I got this job. I waited 2 years for it. I was a waitress. I struggled. I did everything I could to be on a waiting list for this job. And I got it at 26. So I was a teller for the mayor of Milwaukee. I was doing good. My husband was a correction officer. Our kids were great. He was cheating on me, but I didn't care. I just didn't care. I was just moving on with my life. And I didn't care because I knew he was the problem. I wasn't the problem. I always had good relationships with people. I knew where I stood in life. So it never affected my confidence. And I never told anyone in my life my kids don't know, no one knew about what was happening. And that was a big thing for my family where, the women were very submissive. Like for my 23 years, I was the only one that cooked a meal. He never laid a hand on a dish, nothing. He was, the man of the family, and I kept it like that. And I was okay with it, but he was very abusive throughout the whole thing. And the day before my mom had passed, it was his birthday, and I wanted to see my mom. And he didn't want to stay with the kids. And so he had me go home, and I couldn't spend my last night with my mother because he needed to go have an affair. And I allowed it. And I allowed it for years and years and years. And so I was, going through all this stuff with my ex. His ex-wife had came to me and said she was pregnant with his kid. I had just lost my mom. I'm 23 years old. I'm addicted to pills. I'm like going through it in my life. And I started stealing money from my job to cover for my pills at this time. At the time, they started off with Percocets and they led to Oxys. So I'm now on Oxys. And I do it for like about a year where I'm balancing the register in just a way so they won't find out that I'm taking the cash out the drawers. And I think it took about a year, and finally I got caught. I got an audit at one day, and they found out that I was taking money, and I just kind of admitted it. I was like, yeah, I did it. I wanted to own up to it. Let's get it over with kind of thing. And they took me away. I got arrested. I ended up getting 3 years, but they gave me 5 months of house arrest by grace of God, because I was supposed to go do actual time. But my husband at the time, my ex, was a correction officer, so he kind of worked it out for me. But I ended up doing 5 months of house arrest and then community service. Well, at this time, like I had said, his ex-wife thought she was pregnant with his son. And we found out it wasn't hers. And so in my mind, I was going to take this next step and just start moving on with my life. I had lost my mom. I want to do good things. I want to do better. And he is really holding me back, is what I thought. And my brother had lived in Phoenix. And so I thought it would be a good idea to pick up my family and move to Phoenix. This is kind of where things start getting a little bit weird for me. Because at this point, I'm trying to do good with my life. I know I'm on pills, but I want to try and get off and start to do good. Well, on the way there, or the day before I was going to leave, my ex got fired from his job. And so he ended up having to come with me to Phoenix. I wasn't planning for that, but he ended up coming, and I'm thinking all things happen for a reason, right? And so we come to Phoenix. Everything is okay for a little bit. He is cheating on me along the way. I'm going through all this stuff. I thought when I left, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. I had to ask for a request for my probation to be transferred. You have to request for it to be I forget what it's called, for in between states. And so I got approved for it to go from Wisconsin to Arizona. So I get there, everything is fine. I am taking pills, but I can't remember what it was. I had done a dirty pee test, okay? She sent it back, and they ended up asking me to go back to Milwaukee. I didn't want to go back to Milwaukee. I had my kids here. I was going to stay here, right? And so she told me if I didn't go back, I was going to be a fleeing felon. And I said, okay, I just left it at that. And so in about 2010 or 11, I had about a year left of my probation or whatnot. And I just I let it go. And I ended up having to be a fleeing felon while raising my kids, being on the PTO. I had done everything with my life, and I wasn't always sure if I had a felon or if I had a warrant. I wasn't positive, but I knew it enough. And I just let it go. And so I lived my life driving around, they did background checks for PTOs, for jobs, for everything. And no one ever found out I had a warrant on me ever. Until 2019 is when everything started to really, everything started to change. And at this point, I know I'm about to be 40 years old. I'm with a man that is abusive to me. I've lost my mom. I've lost my sister to an overdose in 2014. I've gone through so much in my life. And so I'm wanting to make a change. And so I'm thinking how I can turn myself in a way that will help. So my kids are older at this point, I can kind of get it done with kind of now. And, something always comes up where you just can't do it because it's a hard thing to do, to turn yourself in, right? Well, my ex and I had to go get my daughter from college, and we were driving my Kia, and it was raining. And if anyone knows, on I-17 going north, the roads are very, slippery. You're driving through mountains. It's awful. While driving, I hit a pothole, and my Kia, my car, had just fishtailed, and I'm swerving in the middle of I-17. I look at my ex. It looked like everything had stopped in slow motion. My car was toggling. I could see the side of the road, and he could see his. And I look at him, and he just tells me, let go of the wheel. And I let go of the wheel. And by grace of God, we had spun around a semi-truck. I spun around and looked at a lady that had 2 kids in her vehicle. So I had done a donut. And we almost slid off a cliff. I can't remember where on the freeway, but we had ended up backing up into Slate, and nothing happened to our vehicle. And I was fine, alive. And I did not think I was going to make it at all. So I get into an accident. I'm about 10 minutes away from my daughter, from her college. I have to pick her up. And my ex and I know that I have a warrant for me. We know that something's going to happen, right? And so he was like, okay, a lady had pulled over, and she asked if we needed anything. I asked her if she could take me to get my daughter, because that's where I was headed to. So my ex could deal with, like, if the cops were going to come or something, right? And I went and got my daughter. I come back, and as soon as I come back, the police officer that took my husband, and they had just started driving off. And I don't know why I called. I don't remember what I did, but I had told them that I was there. And so they came back looping around, and I knew that was going to be the day. I knew I was going to have to turn myself in. And so we pull over. They let my ex out, and I knew I was going to have to serve time today. And they just kind of grabbed my arm and said they had a warrant for my arrest. And I want to tell you that this was a very crucial time for me, because my kids had gotten me New Kids on the Block concert tickets, and I am an avid New Kids on the Block fan, okay? I have never got to see them for concert ever, and they bought me as a birthday gift some concert tickets that I was really excited about going to see. Well, this happened in May, and the concert was at the end of May. And so I was more than anything worried about my New Kids concert, okay? And so, they picked me up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to clear my record. I'm going to get this done. My ex has the kids. He's going to take care of the kids. They're grown now. Everything's going to be okay. I know he doesn't know how to do anything. The man has literally never done anything. I have been the most submissive wife, so I was worried about that. But I was hoping that the kids would be okay. I was thinking the man I've been with for almost 20 years at this time would have my back, right? Well, I get to Flagstaff. They have 10 days to pick you up if they're going to transport you, to from state to state. And so I'm with women. It is my very first time. When I first got arrested, I had to spend 3 days in jail. But it was like over the weekend or something like that in Milwaukee. So that was kind of all I have for experience for jail. But I had to go in Flagstaff with women that it was a traumatizing experience for anyone. I couldn't. It was during Mother's Day weekend. I just had an accident. I had broken teeth. My wrist had been broken. I was in pain. I don't know. It was an awful fucking experience. But I was thinking that since I had only stole $2,800, that my felony was very low, that it wouldn't be worth like coming to get me, is my thought. Milwaukee is not going to pay all the money to come transport me, is what I'm thinking, right? I'm going to have to do 10 days and I'll be all right. Well, by day 10, they didn't come. And then I had started to worry, and I had told my ex, because would call every day, and I had told him, if I don't call one of these days, that means that they're coming. They came and got me. And sure enough, one day they call me, and I'm thinking, cool, I'm going to go home. All the women are cheering me on. They're like, yeah, go do better with your life. And I'm like, yeah, once I get home, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do everything, because it was awful. I'm really excited. I'm going to go see my New Kids on the Block concert, is what I'm telling myself, right? And so I get my clothes on. I'm in the little booking room. I'm waiting. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to surprise my family. I'm going to go show up I'm going to rent an Uber and just drive from Flagstaff to Phoenix. And I'm just going to show up to my family and surprise, I'm here, and go to my concert. Well, while I'm in the room, anxious and so excited to go, I look to my corner and there's a man there, and he's got handcuffs, shackles, and all the metal clinking. And I knew from that minute that I was not going home. I knew that was for me. And so I had to put myself in a paradise dream from that moment, because I needed to make it through to go home. I was like, here we go. This is going to be the journey, right? And sure enough, they came and they handcuffed me, shackled me, belly chained me, put me into a van. At this point, when I first got in, there was only a few people, I think 2 men and 2 women. And I think we had fairly enough room at this point. But along the journey, they come and pick people up and drop people off, right? It took 14 days. It took 2 weeks from Arizona to Wisconsin in a transport van. Handcuffed, belly chained, shackled. It was a fucking nightmare. Because I was one of only few females that they picked up, and it was mostly men on the van, I had to either be in the little solitary room on the bus, or even when they took me to different jails, for instance in Kansas, they couldn't put me in Gen Pop because I was a transport prisoner. And so they put me in solitary confinement in Kansas City for 4 days while I had to wait to be picked up by my next transport person for 4 days. And it was nothing but a room, a bed. I can't even remember eating, because I was so fucking out of it by this point. I was trying so hard to just fucking stay strong for my kids. I was praying that they were going to be okay. I was praying that everything was going to work, right? So 2 weeks, I make it to Milwaukee. I work it out with my probation officer. They end up telling me I have to pay a couple $1,000 and they will let me out. I'm like, okay, cool. My son helps us pay it. I get out. I get a plane ticket. I go home to my family, okay? Now, I've been gone for a month at this point. I had to do 2 weeks in Milwaukee. I had to do 2 weeks in Flagstaff, and then, the in-between travel time and whatnot. I get back home, and I'm thinking I'm going to, change my life. ex-husband has my everything together. You know, we're going to be good. Everything is going to be clean slate from here on, basically. And I came home to finding out that that while I was struggling, I was suffering so bad. You know, in the van, I was struggling with my life. While I was doing that, my ex of 20-something years was cheating on me again. And so that kind of did it for me. At this point, I was like, I need to like move on, and I need to do something with my life. I have now paid, and my record is now clear. I'm going to do good with myself. I've been on pills. I got addicted to pills from when I was younger, and I think in 2017, I went and got help from, I one day just decided I was going to go get clean. And I got help in 2017. So 7 years I'm clean. And I've been doing good. And well, when I had found out my ex had cheated on me again, I again was thinking I was going to leave. He ended up proposing to me, as most men do, you know, try to hold you on and whatnot. And I said, yeah. We were together at 20 years for this point. Our plan was to get married. Our kids were off in college now. I was going to buy a house. Everything was going okay, right? I buy a house. Everything is okay. In 2021, we are together for 20 years. We have a wedding. It's COVID, so we have a backyard wedding. You know, for waiting for 20 years, it's not what you want, but it is what you get, right? I think it was around now, though, is when I really started to wake up, because I don't know, so much was happening that I was like seeing in front of me. There were signs of like everything that I needed to make a change. And my dad had prostate cancer. And so 5 months before I was going to get married, he ended up dying, and he was going to walk me down the aisle. And so at this point, I lost my mom, my dad, my sister, okay? I'm here alone with my kids. I'm here with, you know, a husband that is like super abusive to me. In my home that I'm owning, I ended up having, it was a guest house, and so I rented it out as an Airbnb. It was really good it was really good. But I don't know, I couldn't take it anymore. I had asked for a sign from my dad or someone to, like, you know, tell me what to do, and I kind of just put it in the universe to just lead the way. And I sold my home. My husband was being really abusive and evasive with me, but I knew something was going on. I knew it. I did a short sale. I sold my home. I stayed with my daughter. She got me tickets to go see John Edward. He is a psychic medium, okay? I had gone to see him, and he had told me to kind of like follow the breadcrumbs, basically, right? And so I did, and I got a divorce from my husband, my ex-husband, in 2023, but not until I found out that not only was he having an affair on me with a young girl from his work, his employee, but they had 2 kids behind my back. And so I did not find out until after I filed for divorce for him.
How old were the kids?
She was pregnant with one, and one of them was 1. So our entire marriage, he was sleeping around, and he got her pregnant. And so they lost their job because of it. And it was like all of that kind of stuff. It just kept piling on of more and more, just showing me where I need to be, kind of thing, you know? And I really took that time after I got divorced to really look into myself, to change myself, to do better with relationships with my kids, I wanted to be a woman, because I knew that he was giving me the chance to be a woman, by him doing this was going to be my benefit. I knew that. And so I dated only a few times, like a couple people, and that was really hard. I had to really force myself to date the first time. To even have sex with another man outside of my ex was a really difficult thing. But I let things happen organically. I met a guy in a hot tub, and, he just ended up, me and him just met, and I had sex with him, and he fell in love with me. And I found out he had a wife and 2 kids from Mexico, so didn't want anything to do with him. I didn't want anything to do with any kind of a drama in their lives. And so on Facebook dating, I had came across, I should say, who is now my husband, and something about his picture had told me, like, this man is my husband. And I was really into, at this point, like, giving myself into the universe and, like, letting things take me to lead me kind of where they may, kind of thing, at this point in my life. And every step of the way has led me to where I am. And I'm so thankful that everything that happened, even though I had to do 4 days of solitary confinement, even though I had to do all the things I did in my life, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, absolutely nuts I've been through. With losing parents, I mean, that's a lot for everyone to go through. I knew I was going to still be a good enough wife for the good man one day. And I had swiped on my husband, and we went out on a date, I think a week later, and we got married 12 days later. And we are together, it'll be 2 years in September. Just got back from Hawaii. He's a Navy veteran, and he is the most beautiful person I've ever met in my life. The most. And we match energies 1,000%. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I know it is really awful, everything I've been through, because I've been through a lot to get to this point. But I've never lost my confidence in myself. I know who I am. I don't know. I don't let things bother me too much. I try not to.
If you had your life to live over again, would you have done things differently?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. What
would you have done differently?
I would have stuck up for my kids a lot more. I would have left earlier. Oh, a lot earlier. You tell yourself kind of like, he's better, things will get better, I'm getting old, you can't redo, blah, blah, blah. You tell yourself what you want to hear kind of shit. But I know I owed it to my mom, who died at her 42, and my fear was dying at 42, and kind of essentially I did. I rebirthed myself, and I have been on the most awesome journey in the past 2 years that I know I wouldn't have gone on had it not been for every path I took. So I'm thankful. My kids respect me. I'm good with everyone in my life. I know I have an impact on people in my life. I know I do. And yeah, I don't know. I'm a strong woman. I know I am, and I want to do it for the woman in my family.
You've lived a crazy life.
A very wild.
What would you say is the most important thing you've learned in all of this?
I think communication, just bonding. I've bonded with my children and with people in ways that I know have made an impact. And I think the little things can go big ways. So bonding, being open with your kids, and letting them feel heard, But yeah, it's been crazy, but no big regrets. It got me to where I am, and I'm chilling. I'm getting high on a beach in Hawaii with my husband. Can't complain.
All right. Well, Tanya, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Likewise, thank you.
I wish you lots of luck from here on out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. How cool.
Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out. So once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.